Monsieur le Président de l'Assemblée générale des Nations unies, Monsieur le Secrétaire général des Nations unies, Mesdames et Messieurs les chefs d'État et de gouvernement, Excellences, Mesdames, Messieurs, c'est pour moi un insigne honneur de prendre la parole aujourd'hui devant cette auguste Assemblée dont l'objectif est d'apporter des solutions adéquates aux défis de l'insécurité alimentaire, de la malnutrition et de la morbidité à travers la mise en place des systèmes alimentaires durables, efficients et adaptés aux besoins de nos populations. Je tiens donc à féliciter le secrétaire général des Nations unies d'avoir pris cette heureuse initiative et à remercier tous les chefs d'État et de gouvernement qui ont soutenu cette entreprise et contribué à la bonne préparation et à la tenue de ce sommet. Mesdames, Messieurs, l'enjeu de ce sommet est grand, car la mise en place de tels systèmes alimentaires sera déterminante si l'on veut continuer de nourrir l'espoir d'atteindre les objectifs de développement durable à l'horizon 2030, car les implications sur la réduction de la pauvreté, la santé, la nutrition, l'environnement, voire même sur la paix et la sécurité sont évidentes. Ceci est particulièrement patent dans les pays comme le mien, la Mauritanie, qui fait face à une précarité alimentaire chronique, aggravée par des changements climatiques qui affectent notre couvert végétal et dégradent nos terres arables, et qui, à terme, menacent le développement de la productivité de notre cheptel et de notre faune marine. Ces facteurs affectent particulièrement nos populations les plus vulnérables qui vivent en zone rurale, mais impactent aussi négativement le développement économique de notre pays. Ainsi donc, le gouvernement de la République islamique de Mauritanie a décidé d'investir en priorité dans l'amélioration de la production agricole, des ressources animales et de la rationalisation de la gestion de nos pêcheries. Les concertations nationales totalement ouvertes et inclusives en préparation de ce sommet ont conduit de manière préliminaire à des conclusions qui vous ont été présentées lors du pré-sommet de Rome tenu en juillet dernier et qui ont permis de faire émerger un certain nombre d'actions qui, si elles étaient mises en œuvre, permettraient d'atteindre les objectifs de notre sommet. Nos concertations nationales préconisent d'orienter davantage les efforts vers la création de conditions de développement des petites exploitations agricoles. L'agriculture à petite échelle est, de l'avis des acteurs des concertations nationales, la clé des systèmes alimentaires résilients. Elle renferme un grand potentiel pour constituer le fondement des systèmes alimentaires durables. Nul doute que les petites exploitations servent principalement les marchés nationaux et locaux, investissent et dépensent dans les économies locales, et créent des emplois et des opportunités. Elles mettent l'accent également sur la nécessité de promouvoir un tissu industriel national pour valoriser la production alimentaire locale et ses dérivés, afin de réduire notre dépendance des importations et poser les jalons d'un développement économique et social significatif pour notre pays. Mesdames, Messieurs, l'écart de richesse qui caractérise notre monde aujourd'hui est insoutenable. Il fragilise les États les plus vulnérables en alimentant les conflits et l'instabilité sociale et menace les États les plus prospères par les flux migratoires incontrôlés et de plus en plus incontrôlables. Ceci montre, si besoin était, à quel point notre monde est un et que la sécurité de chacun dépend de la sécurité de tous et qu'il est impossible de préserver la prospérité de chacun si l'on n'assure pas la résilience de tous. C'est pourquoi un nouvel élan de solidarité s'impose et avec urgence pour que les pays en développement puissent investir massivement dans des systèmes alimentaires sains et durables Et pour cela, une coopération accrue devra s'établir au niveau international pour accélérer les transferts de technologies et de savoir-faire, pour rendre disponibles des financements adéquats aux pays qui en ont le plus besoin, à travers des ressources nouvelles, mais aussi l'annulation de la dette à laquelle notre pays ne cesse d'appeler, car elle est primordiale pour asseoir les bases nouvelles du développement et de la stabilité, surtout dans notre zone sahélienne, qui fait face à des défis multiples que nos pays ne sauront affronter tant qu'ils croulent sous le poids d'une dette insoutenable. Mesdames, Messieurs, je ne saurais conclure ce mot sans vous annoncer l'adhésion de la Mauritanie et son plein soutien aux multiples coalitions qui ont déjà été annoncées à Rome, et nous nous tenons prêts à soutenir toute initiative qui aille dans le sens d'une solidarité accrue pour l'atteinte des objectifs de notre présent sommet. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for highlighting the key challenges of food systems in your country. Now it's my honor to invite Her Excellency, the First Lady of Colombia. Maria, you have the floor. It's good to see you again.
Colombia ha entendido el llamado de urgencia a transformar los sistemas alimentarios y la importancia de hacerlo desde el trabajo colaborativo, propositivo, articulado y sobre todo solidario para el cumplimiento de la Agenda 2030 en su integralidad, pero sobre todo con el convencimiento de que es un deber moral con las nuevas generaciones, y por eso nuestro compromiso es total en esta década de acción que aceleró el COVID y ya no da espera. La hoja de ruta que hoy presentamos como país es una apuesta nacional, colectiva y además visionaria, que se fundamenta en lograr que nuestros sistemas alimentarios sean equitativos, saludables, sostenibles y sobre todo resilientes. Yo tuve el honor de ser convocante de los diálogos preparatorios a la cumbre junto a Lina Arbeláez, directora del Instituto Colombiano de Bienestar Familiar. Y con ella llevamos a cabo 6 diálogos multisectoriales en todo el país, con población diversa, en los que participaron más de 400 actores, en donde pudimos identificar retos, plantear acciones concretas e incluso replantear lo que se debe mejorar. Todo bajo el marco de las 5 acciones propuestas. Además, en ese proceso pasó algo fundamental para Colombia, y es que firmamos la Coalición para la Alimentación Escolar. Tenemos definitivamente una oportunidad única con esta hoja de ruta y reconocemos que hay temas fundamentales que podemos profundizar en Colombia. Uno de ellos, la Gran Alianza por la Nutrición, que con ese objetivo de disminuir, ojalá erradicar las muertes por y asociadas a desnutrición, buscamos mejorar la práctica de la lactancia materna, sensibilizar sobre la alimentación complementaria y lograr con esto el fortalecimiento de las cadenas de valor locales y los circuitos de comercialización, protegiendo siempre el campo como patrimonio cultural y agroalimentario. Tenemos además unos retos transversales que hemos identificado en los que seguiremos trabajando, como arraigar el enfoque de derecho humano a la alimentación adecuada y a la perspectiva diferencial y territorial, particularmente en un país tan diverso como Colombia. La implementación de la Ley de Compras Públicas Locales y la de Política Nacional de Pérdidas y Desperdicios de Alimentos, así como el fortalecimiento de la alimentación escolar y de los instrumentos sobre agricultura campesina, familiar y comunitaria. La cumbre es sin duda una puerta para potenciar el cumplimiento de nuestra hoja de ruta. El camino para hacerla realidad requiere un compromiso de todos, donde co-construyamos y actuemos con corresponsabilidad, poniendo un foco especial en el liderazgo intergeneracional, apropiando en los jóvenes la sabiduría ancestral y conjugándola con su ímpetu innovador para que sean ellos los grandes agentes de cambio positivo y protagonistas de la transformación de nuestros sistemas alimentarios, acelerando ese cumplimiento de la Agenda 2030.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you for prioritizing nutrition and for engaging young people in your nutrition programs. Now it's my honor to pass the floor on to His Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic of the Gambia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. The Gambia stands on all protocols to extend its appreciation for participating on the World Food Systems Summit 2021. Excellencies, distinguished ladies, delegates, good morning. It is my singular honor and privilege to address this august body on the occasion of the World Food Systems Summit 2021, which brought together diverse food system actors from around the world to leverage the power of food systems to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic and to deliver the progress on all the 17 SDGs. This will be a people's and solution-centered summit and participation of everyone, everywhere, which is important. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in the Gambia, we are able to conduct regional, national, and independent civil society and farmer organizations dialogues, which gave rise to our national pathway. The Gambian National Pathway consists of several milestones that will contribute to the COVID-19 recovery process and put us back on track towards the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals, Agenda 2030. The dialogues culminated into 7 key milestones. 1. Increase access to land, financing, and other productive resources for women, youth, and differently abled persons. 2. Increase the efficiency and effectiveness of the health delivery system. 3. Exploit sustainably the country's natural resources base. 4. Double food production. 5. Coordinate and harmonize policy environment that affects food systems. 6. Increase private sector investment in the food systems. And 7. Respect regional and international fiscal obligation by government of the Gambia. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the ideas, solutions, partnership, and action plans generated from the national dialogues gave a unique perspective on how the food system will contribute to the attainment of Agenda 2030. 1. Milestones 1 to 4 will contribute access to safe and nutritious food, improve consumption patterns, reduce malnutrition, protect the environment, build resilience through smart agriculture, improve quality education, improve gender equality, create jobs, and enhance the sustainable use of the blue and green economies. Milestone 5 will contribute to better understanding and communication within the government circles to eliminate the conflicts among policies and facilitate the implementation of projects and programs. Milestone 6 will contribute to developing livelihoods and reducing the gaps between regions and different strata of society by creating employment opportunities and developing infrastructure. Milestone 7 will contribute to building partnerships, particularly the commitment to the AU-CAADP process of allocating 10% of the national budget to agriculture as contained in the Malabo Declaration of 2014 and to our UN and regional partners. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the Gambia recognizes and we are committed to the importance of the school feeding program in providing safe and nutritious food to our children at a critical period of their development, and we therefore support the coalition on school feeding and commit ourselves to achieving the goal. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, the government of the Gambia is committed to the implementation of the national pathways emanating from the Food System Summit dialogues. I would like to convey my government's appreciation and gratitude to the UN Secretary-General and through him the UN agencies, United Nations Resident Coordinators Office, UNDP, FAO, and World Food Programme for the support given to the Gambia government in the conduct of the Food System Summit dialogue. I thank you all for your attention.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and thank you for highlighting the need and the role of strong coordination in moving food systems forward. Now it's my pleasure to call on the Vice President, His Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic of Benin.
Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs les chefs d'État et de gouvernement, Monsieur le Secrétaire général des Nations Unies, distingués participants, je voudrais, au nom du Président Patrice Talon, exprimer mes chaleureuses félicitations au Secrétaire général des Nations Unies et à son équipe pour l'organisation de ce sommet. À l'instar d'autres pays, le Bénin a poursuivi ses efforts dans les domaines de la nutrition. L'expérience la plus illustrative que je voudrais partager avec l'Assemblée se rapporte à l'alimentation scolaire, considérée comme levier pour pour impulser la marche vers 2030. À travers le programme national d'alimentation scolaire intégrée, déployé dans ces 77 communes, le Bénin contribue depuis 2017 au renforcement de la sécurité alimentaire et nutritionnelle. Financé sur fonds propres, ce programme bénéficie de l'appui des partenaires techniques et financiers et de l'assistance technique du Programme alimentaire mondial. Il garantit à plus de 650 000 écoliers et élèves un déjeuner sain et équilibré à l'heure de la pause et couvre 3 152 écoles. Ce modèle d'alimentation scolaire est à la fois un soutien à l'éducation des écoliers et un facteur de relèvement des taux de scolarisation des filles et un mécanisme d'appui aux ménages. Il permet également d'assurer des occupations et de l'expérience au profit des membres de la communauté intégrés aux unités de gestion et de booster la production locale. Le programme connaît un franc succès et fait des émules dans la sous-région et en Afrique, comme l'illustre la récente visite au Bénin de la première dame de Burundi, pour s'inspirer de l'expérience béninoise. C'est fort de cette riche expérience que le Bénin s'est engagé à jouer un rôle prépondérant au sein de la coalition mondiale pour l'alimentation scolaire sous l'égide du Programme alimentaire mondial. Mesdames et messieurs, les systèmes alimentaires impactent plusieurs ODD et se révèlent par conséquent un levier important, un élément catalyseur pour l'accélération de leur réalisation. Il urge d'engager des transformations profondes afin que ces systèmes contribuent véritablement à l'atteinte des ODD. À cet effet, une forte mobilisation de ressources serait nécessaire pour assurer le financement des 10 systèmes qui, depuis bientôt 2 ans, subissent le diktat de la crise sanitaire mondiale de la COVID-19. C'est pourquoi je voudrais, pour finir, lancer un appel à toute la communauté internationale afin que nous mutualisions nos efforts pour que la transformation des systèmes alimentaires permette d'endiguer la pauvreté et la famine. Je vous remercie de votre aimable attention.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you for calling out and highlighting the success of the school feeding program in your country. It's now my pleasure to call on His Excellency, the Executive Vice President of the European Commission.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to commend Secretary-General Guterres for calling this summit. We need to get global food systems fit for the future if we want to feed a growing population on a planet that's rapidly losing the space and capacity to do so. In this make-or-break decade, humanity faces one overarching challenge: learning to live within planetary boundaries. And let me be clear, if we fail, the planet will still be there. It will be humanity who will pay the highest price. Food production and consumption are major drivers of the climate crisis and looming ecocide. And yet, agriculture and farmers are the first to suffer the consequences if we fail. So we must act now if we don't want our children to fight wars over water and food. We must act now if we don't want millions more to lose their homes and go to bed hungry. The European Union, we've put forward the Farm to Fork strategy to fundamentally change how we feed ourselves. But the shift to sustainable food systems needs to be a global movement. First of all, to fight the climate crisis, we need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions across all sectors. The European Union has set its target of climate neutrality by 2050 into law. Better farming practices, climate-neutral supply chains, and new business opportunities through carbon farming will help us to get there. Secondly, we need to protect 30% of land and 30% of sea and allow nature to restore itself. We know it can if we humans just allow it to do so. By 2030, we will also halve the use of pesticides in Europe and farm a quarter of agricultural land organically. Thirdly, we need to turn the page on a food system that drives too many people to unhealthy food choices. The easy choice must become the healthy and sustainable choice. But the shift to sustainable food is not just about regulations and targets. We've teamed up with food companies and retailers and developed the EU Code of Conduct for responsible business and marketing practices. The commitments made in the code will trigger a real change, and I encourage all companies active in the food chain to sign up as well. Europe is working to make EU food systems the global standard of sustainability, and we invite everyone to join us so that together we can make sustainable food the global standard. Let this summit be a crucial milestone on this journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It's now my honor to invite Her Excellency, the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda.
Mr. President, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the end of 2021 will find us all far from delivering on the Sustainable Development Goals of 2030. The COVID-19 pandemic has further pushed us away from achieving these universal goals. It is therefore important for this Food Systems Summit to offer game-changing solutions that will accelerate the pace in delivering the SDGs to all, leaving no one behind. This summit must be a catalyst for fast-tracking the global transformation towards a more equitable, net zero, and healthier food system that could nourish all. Given the impact of the pandemic on small island developing states, we recognize the urgent need to transform the food system and to decrease the harmful impact on the environment, as well as the associated risks to human health and development. Achieving food security and improving nutrition are critical components in the implementation of and success of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. They are both essential for SDG 2, that's Zero Hunger, and are linked to many other SDGs covering good health and well-being, responsible consumption and production, life below water, and life on land, among others. EOSIS is acutely aware that food systems are local, regional, and international, that they are interconnected to the extent that any substantial transformation can only be achieved through collaboration and assistance of the international community. For SIDS, with small landmass, remoteness, and dispersed populations, it is a constant struggle to provide sustainable patterns of consumption and production. This is even further exacerbated by the adverse impacts of climate change, unfair trade practices, protectionism, and high indebtedness. However, even with these factors that SIDS have little control over, we continue to strive to make a better place for our citizens. We cannot continue along this path if we are to achieve success for the Samoa Pathway and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. In this vein, we welcome the 7 principles of engagement to act with urgency, committing to the summit, being respectful while recognizing complexity, embracing multi-stakeholder inclusivity, complementing the work of others, and building trust. Also, we welcome the 5 action tracks to ensure access to safe and nutritious food for all, shifting to sustainable consumption patterns, boosting nature-positive production, advancing equitable livelihoods, and building resilience to vulnerabilities, shocks, and stresses. Mr. President, recent studies conducted by the Sustainable Development Solutions Network and the United Nations Resident Coordinators and SIDS show that there exists a negative relationship between the degree of structural vulnerability of countries across the world and their progress towards achieving SDG 2, that is Zero Hunger. Consequently, the evidence indicates that countries with a higher degree of vulnerability face more difficulties to end hunger, to achieve food security and improve nutrition. Regrettably, this is the case for small island developing states. Adequate food security and nutrition is a complex and multifaceted challenge facing SIDS. However, in all its complexities, the end result is malnutrition. Within our small states remains increasingly grave. Mr. President, food security in SIDS is a policy priority, which requires coordinated efforts from different stakeholders at both the local and international levels. However, given the unique vulnerabilities of SIDS and the various challenges that we face, the international community must do more. This includes the transfer of and access to environmentally friendly technologies that will aid in the uptick of food production in our respective countries. We also call for continued sustainable access to healthy foods, increased global nutrition labeling policies, development of coherent public policies from production to consumption, and ensuring timely and cost-effective importation of healthy foods within SIDS. Mr. President, finally, we call on the international community for scale-up and enhanced support, including in the areas of technical assistance, capacity building, and technology transfer. We also call for the mobilization of additional developmental finance from all sources at all levels, including preferential terms to support small island developing states' national plans and strategies to address food security and nutrition. For SIDS, consensus over a global pathway towards sustainable food systems and adequate financing is not only vital, but also necessary for our survival, sustainable development, and resilience building. I thank you, distinguished ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you for highlighting the challenges of the food systems of the SIDS, and thank you for embracing the multi-stakeholder complexity of our food systems. It's now my pleasure to invite the Prime Minister of the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg. You have the floor.
Dear Secretary-General, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure that I'm talking to you today. Food insecurity remains one of the most alarming challenges we face today. It is further intensified by the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and the climate crisis. The preparatory work for this summit has underlined the importance of cooperation and collaboration at all levels, by the local, national and international, in order to reorient our current food systems to make it more inclusive and more sustainable. It was heartening to see how many people from so many different countries and communities joined either in person or virtually. It truly makes me believe that if we manage in reaching so many people, discuss some of the most urgent issues of our times and share innovative ideas, practices and lessons, we can succeed in transforming our current food systems. Talking about food systems means looking at the bigger picture, how food, climate, technology, gender, environment, agriculture and health are connected, how we produce and how we consume. Let us never forget that the right to food is a human right, and it's our responsibility to make sure that every single one of us has access to sufficient, sustainable and nutritious food. In this context, my country, Luxembourg, is particularly proud to join the School Meals Coalition. The establishment of effective school meal programs represents a smart investment into future generations as well as into more sustainable humanitarian action and development aid. School meals can be a true catalyst for change and facilitate the creation of opportunities, especially for young girls and women. School meals also play a vital role for the local economy, especially when using locally grown food. While the pandemic has exposed the fragility of food systems and the resulting closing of schools has significantly impacted school meal programs worldwide, it also once again highlighted the importance of local ownership and has pushed us to reflect more deeply on how to build back better and stronger. You can count on us, Luxembourg's support and solidarity, and we look forward to the coalition's important contribution to the reorientation of food systems and fostering a more sustainable and equal world for future generations. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you for those remarks, and thank you for reminding us that the right to food is a human right. Now it's my honor and pleasure to give the floor to the Prime Minister, His Excellency, the Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Bhutan.
Mr. Secretary-General, Excellencies, and distinguished delegates, I offer you my heartfelt greetings from the land of gross national happiness. I'm excited to participate in this summit because this is one area that is very close to my heart. As a doctor, I've always been sharing my thoughts on food and health habits at my workplace and clinics. I genuinely believe that your health largely depends on what you eat. From being very efficient and happier at work to the quality of sleep and positive psychology in life, almost everything has a lot to do with the food you eat. But times are hard. Even before we discuss about the healthy food habits, I know that we have to first ensure availability and affordability of food by all. So today, I have in my heart our fellow human beings from across the globe. As the burden of the pandemic weighs heavy on us, it has compromised the access and quality of food and other essentials. Forget about meeting nutritional requirements. The Asia-Pacific region alone has about 90 million people pushed back into poverty during this pandemic. Excellencies, Bhutan is a developing Himalayan nation, and the geographical landscape is far from favorable for a meaningful agriculture. The human-wildlife conflict and the impacts of climate change are testing the resilience of our crops as well as the patience of our growers daily. And then we have tough environment and climate laws, which of course is good in the long run, but firm and rigid for the immediate gains. By our recent census, almost 44% of the employed persons are in agriculture sector. Of that, most are practicing only subsistence farming that entails traditional methods and hard labor. For us, the pandemic presented a stark reminder that we are an import-driven country and need to do more in terms of food production. Only then we can play an active part in a global food system. But we have a unique opportunity to reform our food system today. In doing so, we aspire to move from conventional to technology-driven farming and from subsistence to commercial scale. Gradually, we need to progress to health-conscious dietary practices from mere taste preferences and cultural habits. Excellencies, in many countries, food shortage was a concern even during pre-pandemic. But now the pandemic has disrupted the food production, accessibility, and supply chain altogether. My fear is that if you don't act quick, the situation might aggravate and cause the hunger pandemic next. This could claim more lives in COVID-19 and also trigger outbreaks of multiple health conditions. I'm worried that if you don't ensure food security as one of the main constituents of the economic revival in our post-pandemic way forward, this vicious cycle will continue, leaving many nations and millions of people behind. Therefore, both the supply and demand structure world over need to be redesigned. Every country must have a food self-sufficiency plan, and we all must help each other to achieve and sustain that. Strengthening food system will not just be the biggest complementing factor to prevent and counter similar pandemics in future, but also have positive impact on climate change. It would enhance overall quality of living on the planet. And this summit is a perfect platform to initiate the wholesome approach. For Bhutan, we pledge to do our part. I thank you all for the opportunity and end with a prayer for a healthier and stronger world. Thank you all and Tashidele.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you so much for your prayer. And we also thank you for mentioning and calling out that we have a unique opportunity to transform our food system today. It's now my honor and pleasure to invite Her Excellency, the Prime Minister of Barbados. You have the floor.
Excellencies, the global spread of the coronavirus disease in 2020 created an unstable economic situation, especially for my country and other tourism-dependent countries across the world. The United Nations Economic Situation Report 2021 reminds us of the devastating impact of COVID-19 on the countries of Latin America and the Caribbean. Not only did it virtually erase progress made by many of us following the worldwide recession that started in 2007-8, but sadly, too many of our families lost loved ones. My friends, for many of us, this pandemic-induced crisis has also led to further setbacks regarding the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals, especially in relation to the elimination of poverty and hunger. What does this pandemic have to do with a conference that focuses on food systems? My friends, the relevance lies in the implications for national food security and food sovereignty. The pandemic immediately led to disrupted global supply chains. This forced many governments, including my own, to accelerate food production efforts and/or to devise new systems that were critical in order to ensure our citizens could have access to food and affordable food at that. In a previous forum, I made mention of the April 2020 meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of the Caribbean Community, which led to the approval of the COVID-19 Agro-Food Risk Management Framework and Action Plan. At the time, most of our planning efforts were based on a short to medium-term expected duration of this virus. Well, we now recognize the need to have more long-term, sustainable, and resilient systems in place to guarantee, one, that we significantly reduce the $6 billion US CARICOM food import bill, and two, that we can provide sustainable amounts of healthy food and nutrition, lest we starve. And let us not forget, healthy eating is critical because where does the pandemic hit our citizens and all of us the most? With comorbidities, many of which are as a result of chronic non-communicable diseases. So, I ask you, how best might we address the challenges of this global nemesis? To begin with, I always remind my fellow Barbadians that the experience of the pandemic is more likely to be characterized by a marathon, or as a marathon, I should say, rather than a 200-meter or 100-meter sprint. While our immediate response will focus on the things that we all know well, vaccination and observing protocols, a longer-term response to survival will require the promotion of economic resilience and diversification by repositioning the food and agricultural sector at the center of the socio-economic development of the region. But it is not just because of the pandemic. It is also because of the climate crisis and the reality that hurricanes and floods and droughts will seriously disrupt our capacity to produce food globally, and particularly for us within our region. And if we want our people to start concentrating on the production of food, we can't tell them that we only need you for a pandemic or for a climate crisis. It therefore must be in the context of a policy framework that is equally sustainable and equally nurturing of those persons in our community who are simply seeking, one, to provide enough food for their communities and their country, while at the same time earning a living for their family. They cannot do this if they are literally going to face an onslaught of imported produce, more cheaply produced, and sometimes not as better produced because of the inclusion of chemicals and pesticides. I therefore want to suggest, as I end, that any serious effort at achieving sustainability in our agri-food systems will require a focus and deliberate attention to a number of things. One, yes, food and healthy lifestyles. Agricultural production must be linked to healthy lifestyles. It is not only important to grow, but let us grow healthy food that will allow our citizens to keep healthy as far as possible. Let us eat what we grow as a matter of urgency. Two, that we must focus on science and technology. High productivity in agricultural production systems can only be achieved through the use of high technological inputs based on research and innovation. Three, climate crisis actions Agricultural systems must be built on the production of drought-tolerant varieties, effective soil management and pest management, improved water management strategies including irrigation and water capture systems, and, my friends, the use of solar energy systems. 4, agriculture and tourism linkages. If our domestic agricultural sector must be repositioned to supply at least half of our food needs in the tourism sector, we would then be able to save vital foreign exchange and also lead to the creation of new and creative talents, both in production, distribution, and of course in marketing. Then, of course, policy space, because if we don't have the policy space to protect our farmers from the onslaught of cheap imported foods, they will not be able to produce for us when it is most needed, as we have seen from the pandemic and the climate crisis. And finally, the Global Food Security Development Fund. I repeat the need for the establishment of a Global Food Security Development Fund in cooperation with the international financial community, because this is what is needed to be able to allow many of our farmers, and in many countries we're not in a position to provide the level of support to our farmers that is needed to be able to ensure that they can withstand that onslaught of cheap produce that literally floods our markets. My friends, if we are capable of achieving these things, then, my friends, the future of ensuring that our people can have basic access to food will be secured. That, I believe, is the purpose of this summit. Thank you for the opportunity to address this distinguished forum.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and thank you for calling out the things we need to prioritize to be able to come through a functional food system. Thank you also for reminding us that we need to position food systems at the center of economic recovery from COVID. Now, it's my pleasure to call His Excellency, the Prime Minister of Tuvalu, to take the floor.
Secretary-General, Excellencies, colleagues, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to announce that the Cabinet of the Government of Tuvalu has recently approved Tuvalu's Food Systems Pathway. Our food systems pathway is directly linked to our national vision, a peaceful, resilient, and prosperous Tuvalu. This vision is strongly outlined under Tuvalu's National Strategy for Sustainable Development, 2021 to 2030. To achieve this national vision, my government will pursue 5 strategic priority areas: enabling environment, social development, economic development, island and cultural development, and infrastructure development. In our national strategy for sustainable development, 20 national outcomes assist in the achievement of these 5 strategic priority areas. Of these 20 national outcomes, 15 will directly contribute to the 5 action tracks listed under the FSSD. I am proud to note also that Tuvalu's National Strategy for Sustainable Development and National Vision are to be achieved in 2030, the same year in which the SDGs are meant to be attained. My government acknowledges the importance of developing clear pathways towards achieving the SDGs, and we now fully recognize that our food system pathways will bring us to the successful completion of these goals. Through the FSSD process, we have become better aware of the need to work holistically to transform our food systems so that they are production and not consumption-based. We also recognize that most of the challenges Tuvalu now faces in relation to our food systems pathway are man-made and caused by those who do not even reside in our country. Our vision is therefore to foster national food systems for Tuvalu that reduce the importation of unhealthy foods and promote increased local food production, enhance food safety, improve nutrition and healthy diets, and increase income-generating opportunities to enhance sustainable livelihoods. As one of only 5 atoll nations in the world, Tuvalu faces unusual challenges that are different from those faced by most other countries. Many of these challenges are natural and typically associated with Tuvalu's status as an atoll nation. Soil is poor and porous. Tuvalu is distant from major markets, and there is only limited flora and fauna in the country. The major man-made challenge Tuvalu faces is climate change, which is already affecting the food systems as we speak. During our national dialogue, 6 overarching goals emerged that are imperative to achieving our food systems transformation. Increasing local food production, strengthening partnerships, changing and shifting diets, eating safe and nutritious foods, strengthening governance and finance, and building coalitions with atoll nations. I am proud that we in Tuvalu are already implementing a number of game-changing food initiatives. Burrow or bulaga pits passed on from our ancestors are now being built with concrete to curb the intrusion of seawater and a healthy nutrition. National food strategy was recently launched by the Ministry of Finance to assist our people in consuming healthy and safe foods. Tuvalu's work will not end at this summit either. My nation will undertake face-to-face bilateral meetings with our national stakeholders, including those in island communities and our overseas partners. Ultimately, we seek to force a coalition of united atoll nations to realize truly transformative food systems initiatives. I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and thank you for coming in live and for sharing with us your vision for your food systems, reducing importation of unhealthy foods, advancing income generating activities, and the need to build resilience to natural disasters and climate change. Thank you again. And now it's my pleasure and honor to introduce Martin Frick, who is going to continue the statements of this evening. Martin has worked with me in the Food Systems Summit and has done such an amazing job of engaging governments and other stakeholders in the last 18 months. Martin, over to you.
Thank you, Special Envoy. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we are continuing in our speakers list with the Kingdom of Eswatini, and I have the honor to give the floor to His Excellency Cleopas Sifo Dlamini, the Prime Minister. Over to you, Prime Minister.
UN Secretary-General, heads of state and governments, distinguished delegates, the Kingdom of Eswatini is honored to join global community in supporting the implementation of Agenda 2030. We agree that this food systems approach needs to be mainstreamed into our policies and programs to ensure inclusive and sustainable development for all. Your Excellencies, we're excited that our national planning framework has integrated Sustainable Development Goals and Agenda 2063, recognizing the food system approach as we accelerate to progress of our country's pathway towards achieving these goals. We have prioritized some solutions to achieve sustainable food systems by 2030. They include the following: value chain structuring through development of commodity sector development plan agreements, where opportunities based on potential, set targets, required investments, and objectives for each commodity will be identified with specific roles for private and public sectors. Improving public financing mechanism through the establishment of an agricultural development fund with financing facilities for de-risking agriculture value chains. Improving coordination of players through the establishment of agricultural industry associations for farmers, traders, service providers, and processors to improve organization, systematic planning, and linkages along the value chains. Reviewing and re-engineering institutional arrangements to create an environment that will support and enable marketing boards to fulfill their mandate as outlined in the legislative framework. Supporting integrated digital agricultural data and information systems to establish farmer registration, product rescheduling, and agricultural commodity exchange platform for key commodities. Upscaling food security and nutrition programs where poor and vulnerable households will be supported to produce their own food. As I conclude, may I extend our appreciation to our partners who have continued to support our food systems in the country and invite others to do the same. I thank you and wish you fruitful deliberations.
Excellency, thank you very much. And it's heartening to see how a food systems approach is mainstreamed in all of your government policies, as we need indeed the profound change that you just outlined. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor now to give the floor to His Excellency Andrew Holmes, the Prime Minister of Jamaica. Excellency, you have the floor.
Your Excellency, Mr. António Guterres, UN Secretary-General, Your Excellency, Mr. Abdullah Shahid, President of the General Assembly, fellow heads of state and government, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. President, for structurally vulnerable small island developing states like Jamaica, which have been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic, this year's Food Systems Summit takes on special significance. Its staging underscores the international community's strong conviction that despite the pandemic, no one should be left behind, and that every citizen across the world has an equal and legitimate right to food and nutritional security. Jamaica remains committed to continuing our constructive work to advance the global food systems agenda. We also commit to exploring synergies within the various work streams of the Financing for Development in the Era of COVID-19 and Beyond initiative, which I co-chair with the UN Secretary-General and the Prime Minister of Canada, to achieve the goal of zero hunger. In the Caribbean, food and nutrition insecurity are primarily the result of our small size, increasing exposure to climate change, and related natural hazards. To compound our challenges, the COVID-19 pandemic has precipitated the worst economic recession in the region in the last half-century. There is universal acceptance that there is no single model for food systems transformation, and the trade-offs vary by country and region. Multilateral assistance to developing countries to transform food systems should therefore be delivered in line with the national priorities and realities, ensuring that the processes of transition are just, equitable, and fair. The transformation of global food systems should strike a balance among the following objectives: the capacity to increase food production levels and variety, agricultural health and food security and safety, nutritional diversity and quality, and equitable food standards that govern trade and environmental and economic and social sustainability. Let me reiterate that responding to these challenges requires an inclusive, multidimensional, systems-based approach that addresses the range and complexities of our challenges in a holistic and sustainable manner. Our collaborative participation and contributions in this forum must move us closer to securing a joint commitment and united response to addressing this urgent matter. I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and a special thank you for your leadership in working on the truly historic goal of zero hunger we are striving to achieve by 2030. It gives me now pleasure to hand over the floor to His Excellency Ralph Gonsalves, the Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Excellency, you have the floor.
Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, friends, the eradication of hunger is one of humanity's most noble yet enduring ambitions. Amidst this perilous climate epoch, as bleached coral reefs mangle our seas and global carbon emissions scorch across the earth, the quest to defeat undernourishment seems an insurmountable task. Still, embedded within our collective consciousness reside the tools to address malnutrition and to safeguard the ecological systems on which our continued human existence so heavily depends. Through a renewed multilateralism, with this United Nations and its specialized agencies at its core, we can ensure that everyone, everywhere, has access to safe and nutritious food. All stakeholders, including farmers, fishers, and indigenous communities, must mobilize themselves and be mobilized alongside their national governments to establish sustainable practices and to provide adequate sustenance to all. For our part, St. Vincent and the Grenadines has embarked on an ambitious campaign to support our small farmers, to help build their capacities and expand their production of organic and nutritious foods. So too have we engaged our fisherfolk, providing permissible subsidies and fiscal support. All of this we have pursued despite the economic fallout of COVID-19 and the recent volcanic eruptions that destroyed approximately 1/3 of our nation's productive capacity. Notwithstanding these immense hurdles, we have kept the faith to ensure that life, living, and production continue for all our people. The Food and Agricultural Organization, the FAO, and the World Food Programme, the WFP, have been our committed partners during these trying times. Global stakeholders, in particular developed countries, are being summoned to match their endeavors with deep emission cuts and wide-ranging commitments for predictable and reliable development financing. More pressingly, the international financial architecture must be suitably reformed to provide social protections to the most vulnerable, to account sufficiently for our small island exceptionalism, and to strike a balance between economic well-being and economic welfare through the promotion of sustainable economic practices. During this pivotal decade, to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, let us work together to build stronger cooperative networks, to defeat hunger, to end conflict, to strengthen resilience, to promote justice, and to advance sincerely a common agenda for all of humanity. I thank you.
Excellency, thank you very much indeed. And it's really only through renewed multilateralism that we will ever achieve the goal of zero hunger and zero malnutrition for everybody on this planet. Our next speaker is His Excellency Sher Bahadur Deuba, the Prime Minister of Nepal. Excellency, you have the floor.
Mr. President, Excellencies, heads of the state and government, Mr. Secretary-General and distinguished delegates, first I would like to commend the Secretary-General for convening this summit. There is no better time than this to deliberate on food system. Today, 1 in every 10 people on earth is undernourished, and the COVID-19 pandemic has further worsened food insecurity. With disruption in supply chain and rising food prices, the situation in LDCs and LLDCs is all the more acute. It is important for this summit to be bold. We must translate our commitment into building a food system fit for the future. Mr. President, a mountainous country, Nepal has a food system that is highly vulnerable to the disaster caused by the climate change and extreme weather. The COVID-19 pandemic has further limited our physical space, endangered our food chain, and risk reversing our development gains. Despite these hardships, the government under my leadership has adopted pro-poor and inclusive policies to tackle poverty and hunger, to save people's life and to rebuild the economy to make it better and stronger. My government aims to protect farmers engaged in food production by adopting a life cycle approach. These efforts are made in line with our Constitution's promise to ensure affordable, healthy, and nutritious food for all Nepalese people. We are determined to achieve zero hunger by 2030. Ladies and gentlemen, transformative investment in agriculture will be crucial to ensure food security for all. This includes harnessing modern technologies and making high-yield seed variant available in all countries. Nepal remains committed to our collective efforts to ensure that nutritious food is a reality for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Excellency. And let me also thank your government for an indeed very intensive dialogue process your country went through. Our next speaker is His Excellency James Marape, the Prime Minister and Minister for Bougainville Affairs and Defense of Papua New Guinea. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you on behalf of my Prime Minister, Excellency, Mr. Excellency General, Excellency and distinguished guests, delegates. On behalf of my Prime Minister, the Honorable James Marape, I am honored and pleased to join the important Nations Food System Summit on behalf of my country. I want to thank the UN Secretary-General and the Food System Summit Special Envoy Kalibati for your courageous leadership and progress on the food system agenda to achieve a sustainable development goal, especially during this unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic and also in the midst of global climate crisis. Mr. General Secretary-General, Papua New Guinea government is appreciative of the strong support we have received from the United Nations Countries Office, particularly the Food and Agriculture Office. On this agenda, let me also pay a special tribute to the multitude of the global citizens who made it their business in an excellent way to make this summit a people's summit. Excellencies, Papua New Guinea is the third largest rainforest nation in the world, covering 7% of the world biodiversity on the less than 1% of the world landmass. The summit is important for my country given that agriculture is our national backbone and our future success will depend on how we address the issue involved. The importance of protecting our rich organic food heritage cannot be overstated. On the majority of our people who still live in the rural areas, and agriculture sector is where 25% is engaged in a variety of subsistence and a cash income activity involving our local food system. However, Papua New Guinea is concerned with the alarming increase in the lifestyle-related disease and the health concern, including from the food choices. This is future compounded by our vulnerability of climate change and natural disaster, which impact our fragile food system. The recent impact of the COVID-19 on the food supply chain has only worsened the situation. These are putting huge strain on the limited capacity of our government system, including our sustainable development goals and national implementation efforts. Let us use the occasion to take stock of the existing opportunity and challenge of our food system at all levels. We must work in partnership and inclusive and a timely manner to address our food system issue, including raising awareness of global commitments and take action that will transform food system in a positive way to resolve challenges relating to hunger, malnutrition, and diet-related issues, food security and investment in better health for our people and the community. Excellencies, at the national level, Papua New Guinea successfully convened two national food system dialogues and a national dialogue. We also participated in the Pacific region food system dialogue and the peace summit in Rome. And may I thank Italy for the important contribution to this summit. We are pleased to note that our national dialogue involved broad stakeholder participation, including from the government, private sector, academia, research institutions, development partners, civil society, farmers, pastoralists, and fisheries communities. The 5 action traits of the UN Food System Summit guided our national dialogue. Excellencies, we have identified 5 key priorities actions that will form our national pathway to transform our food system for a sustainable, equitable, and resilient and healthier food system in our country. Firstly, to strengthen the role of women and youth as a key driver to transforming food system. From our national dialogue, we decided to add this as our 6th national action plan, in addition to 5 action tracks the UN Food System Summit has identified. This is in view of the high importance and the government, PNG government places on the critical role women and the youth play in the food system in our country. We therefore intend to harness and enhance their participations as a key driver to transform the food system in the country. Secondly, to facilitate partnership with education agency to promote healthy and nutritious food. Thirdly, to harness and promote innovations and best practices in the food system based on science and research. Fourthly, to strengthen responsible, sustainable, and resilient food system in times of vulnerabilities, shock, and stresses without degrading the natural environment. And fifthly, to foster multi-stakeholder or partnership to transform food system. The PNG government believes that these 5 priority actions are critical to transform our national food system and also complement our effort to progress the sustainable development goals. Excellencies, like many other countries, the COVID-19 pandemic has exposed our vulnerabilities and continue to hinder our effort to produce the SDGs among our existing challenges. Hence, our commitment to transform the food and the system will be no exception. For the food system, national pathway and strategies to be meaningful and transform, we call for effective and enhanced partnership between government, private sector, development partners, and financial institutions to mobilize finance and to other investment resources to support our national ownership and leadership efforts towards long-term sustainable development solutions. Human resource and the key institutional capacity building support, and sharing of the best practices, the lesson learned, but also some of these important areas and could benefit from the food system partnership. Doing so, we will help. Doing so, will help to achieve inclusive growth, environmental sustainability, and social justice, while leaving no one behind. In closing, I want to affirm Papua New Guinea government's strong commitment to this important agenda. I thank you all for that. Thank you.
Excellency, thank you very much indeed, and particularly for highlighting the importance of a broad societal participation, in particular of women and youth. Excellencies, our next speaker is His Excellency Javier Espot Zamora, the Prime Minister of Andorra. Excellency, you have the floor.
Monsieur le Secrétaire Général, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, je souhaiterais remercier le Secrétaire Général pour l'organisation de cette initiative. La crise sanitaire a bouleversé notre système mondial à tous les niveaux et a également mis en avant certaines de nos fragilités. En effet, la pandémie a aggravé l'existence d'insécurité alimentaire et la malnutrition. La réflexion que nous menons aujourd'hui doit permettre de renouveler un système qui n'est malheureusement pas aligné sur l'agenda 2030 et qui est à la merci des effets du changement climatique. Les investissements transformateurs des systèmes alimentaires doivent contribuer à ce renouvellement. Aussi, la recherche et l'innovation sont des moteurs indispensables afin de développer des systèmes alimentaires alternatifs et plus adaptés au changement climatique et à la répartition de la population mondiale actuelle. Par ailleurs, une approche multipartite, forte et intégrée, fondée sur un dialogue et de partenariat entre les acteurs publics et privés, les organisations de la société civile, les décideurs politiques et toutes les parties prenantes, est essentielle pour redéfinir des modèles de production et de consommation alimentaire durables et équitables. L'Andorre s'investit dans la lutte contre le gaspillage alimentaire afin de progresser sur la voie de systèmes alimentaires durables. En ce sens, mon gouvernement a présenté au Parlement un projet de loi relatif à l'économie circulaire qui permettra d'avoir une approche plus durable de la consommation. En effet, l'Andorre est un très petit producteur étant donné sa petite dimension territoriale, mais est un grand consommateur de produits alimentaires en raison des millions de visiteurs qui se rendent sur notre territoire chaque année. Cette affluence nous oblige à nous interroger sur des processus de consommation et de gestion des biens naturels plus durables. En ce qui concerne la consommation, le projet de loi relatif à l'économie circulaire s'aligne sur l'ODD 12.3, dont l'objectif est de réduire de moitié les pertes alimentaires à l'horizon 2030. Quant à la production, nous avons fait le pari d'investir dans la promotion et la certification de produits locaux et des circuits d'approvisionnement courts afin de garantir des revenus plus équitables pour les producteurs et un produit final de qualité. L'Andorre, pays de montagne, tient également à préserver dans son système de production une agrobiodiversité essentielle, en particulier dans les régions touchées par les défaillances de production et dont les populations sont sujettes à la malnutrition. Le changement climatique, la répartition des populations, les changements géopolitiques et les conflits sont autant d'éléments qui doivent être pris en compte pour permettre en place une sécurité alimentaire efficace au niveau international. Ainsi, nous nous sommes engagés, avec San Marino, à proclamer le 29 septembre Journée internationale de sensibilisation aux pertes et gaspillages de nourriture. Les régions sont touchées à différents niveaux par l'insécurité alimentaire, mais il est de notre devoir d'être à la fois solidaires et responsables. Je vous remercie.
Excellency, thank you very much. I also would like to thank you for your strong engagement in reducing food waste and for highlighting the interesting nexus between tourism and food import. Our next speaker, Excellencies, is the Prime Minister of Vanuatu, His Excellency Bob Lohan Weibur. Excellency, you have the floor.
Mr. Secretary-General, Excellencies, Heads of State and Governments, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, Mr. Secretary-General, congratulations on your leadership and the work of the United Nations in uniting the globe to leverage the power of food systems to accelerate our Sustainable Development Goals. The design of this Global Food System Summit fits well with our national vision, a stable, sustainable, and prosperous Vanuatu. The summit also links well with our 2030 Good Falagagai or good food policy with a vision, a healthy, wealthy, food secure Vanuatu that enjoys a high quality of life. Mr. Secretary General, through the dialogues conducted in the lead up to the summit, Vanuatu has identified 3 key priorities for strengthening its food system by 2030. Firstly, leadership and governance. The Vanuatu government commits to lead and coordinate an inclusive, multi-stakeholder effort to transform our food system by 2030. Secondly, improve diets and food environments. Vanuatu will build on current initiatives to sustainably increase its local production capacity and improve its food environment to ensure our people have access to more healthy and nutritious diets. And finally, resilient food systems and livelihoods. Vanuatu will continue to develop and build a more resilient food system to better manage our vulnerability to natural disasters and global impacts of climate change, pandemics, and economic imbalances and shocks. In concluding, Mr. Secretary General, we believe our pathway will enable us to transform our food system in ways that will build a more stable, sustainable, and prosperous Vanuatu that leaves no one behind. We look forward to working with the United Nations, the international community, partners, and experts to achieve our mutual 2030 development goals. I thank you, Mr. Secretary General, and God bless you all.
Excellency, thank you very much indeed, and thank you for sharing with us your plans to build more resilient local food systems for better nutrition of your population. Our next speaker is His Excellency Ariel Henry, the Prime Minister of the Republic of Haiti. Excellency, you have the floor.
Pour un territoire de 28 000 km² et d'environ 12 millions d'habitants, Haïti présente un potentiel agroécologique suffisant pour atteindre la sécurité et la souveraineté alimentaire et nutritionnelle. Cependant, nous reconnaissons que nos systèmes alimentaires actuels ne sont pas assez performants pour garantir à tous l'accès à des aliments sains et nutritifs, et encore moins pour contribuer au développement socio-économique et à la durabilité environnementale. De ce fait, nous devons, dans les 10 ans à venir, transformer nos politiques publiques pour mieux les adapter et les rendre plus efficaces afin d'améliorer le bien-être des générations présentes et futures. Le gouvernement haïtien s'engage à réajuster les politiques sectorielles proposées dans son plan intitulé « Politique et stratégie nationale de souveraineté et de sécurité alimentaire et de nutrition en Haïti » dans le but d'atteindre d'ici à 2030 les objectifs suivants. D'abord, garantir l'accès à tous à des aliments sains et nutritifs, ensuite passer à des modes de consommation durables, stimuler une production respectueuse de la nature, promouvoir des moyens de subsistance équitables, enfin, renforcer la résilience de nos systèmes alimentaires. Compte tenu de la crise politique, sociale et institutionnelle que traverse mon pays et la vulnérabilité accrue de notre économie aux catastrophes naturelles, certaines actions sont prioritaires d'ici à 2024. Et cela avant la mise en œuvre des réformes profondes en vue d'atteindre les objectifs du développement durable, ODD. Dans cette perspective, nous confirmons notre engagement à assurer la stabilité politique et un environnement sécuritaire, à développer des outils adéquats pour financer le système alimentaire, à concevoir enfin des stratégies de valorisation plus productives et plus résilientes de nos territoires. Le gouvernement d'Haïti mettra en œuvre, dans les meilleurs délais, une commission nationale stratégique pour le suivi de la mise en œuvre de la feuille de route. Celle-ci réunira des entités étatiques et des acteurs de la société civile. Cette commission aura pour tâche, notamment, de conduire des concertations permanentes pour définir les engagements des acteurs nationaux. Je vous remercie.
Excellency, thank you very much for sharing with us this all-of-society effort to build a resilient food system in the face of political and environmental crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is Her Excellency Rose Christiane Osuka Rabonda, the Prime Minister of the Gabonese Republic. Excellency, you have the floor.
Mesdames et Messieurs les chefs d'État et de gouvernement, Monsieur le Secrétaire général des Nations Unies, Mesdames et Messieurs, permettez-moi à l'entame de mon propos de vous transmettre les salutations de Son Excellence Monsieur Ali Bongo Ondimba, Président de la République gabonaise, qui me charge de vous adresser ses regrets de ne pouvoir prendre part personnellement au présent sommet mondial sur les systèmes alimentaires. Aussi, Monsieur le Président de la République gabonaise m'a-t-il fait laisser l'honneur de le représenter à ces assises qui portent sur la résilience des systèmes alimentaires de nos États. Le présent sommet intervient presque 2 ans après le déclenchement de la crise sanitaire mondiale de la Covid-19 qui a déstructuré nos sociétés et notre vivre ensemble et mis à mal, entre autres, les systèmes alimentaires de nos différentes nations. Nos travaux se tiennent par ailleurs à un moment où notre planète fait face à un dérèglement climatique avec l'érosion de sa biodiversité d'une part et alors que l'Afrique doit prendre en main sa souveraineté alimentaire pour nourrir de façon plus autonome sa population. C'est conscient de l'importance des défis auxquels il fait face que le Gabon, sous l'impulsion du président de la République gabonaise, Son Excellence M. Ali Bongo Ondimba, s'est engagé à intensifier le processus de diversification de son économie basé sur l'inclusion des femmes et des jeunes et sur la préservation de l'environnement, entre autres. Dans cette optique, le plan d'accélération de la transformation que mon gouvernement met en œuvre a placé le secteur agricole au cœur des priorités de notre nouveau modèle de développement. Ce plan se traduit par la mise à disposition du plus grand nombre de terres agricoles dont les titres fonciers sont sécurisés, par l'accès facilité aux intrants ou encore par un accompagnement de qualité tant à l'endroit des petits producteurs que des investisseurs directs étrangers. C'est avec conviction et détermination que notre pays s'est engagé dans la préparation du présent sommet qui a fait l'objet de concertations nationales inclusives. De ces concertations, il ressort ce qu'il suit. Le Gabon doit pérenniser sa politique de lutte contre les changements climatiques tout en bénéficiant du maximum de soutien de la communauté internationale, en particulier en ce qui concerne la transformation du conflit homme-faune en cohabitation paisible et harmonieuse entre l'homme et la faune. Le développement des circuits courts d'approvisionnement doit favoriser l'essor d'une production nationale plus résiliente par rapport au choc, à même d'offrir aux producteurs nationaux une rémunération décente. Les exigences en matière de qualité nutritionnelle, de besoins quantitatifs de production, de préservation de l'intégrité sanitaire des animaux et de limitation de l'impact environnemental des activités productives doivent être indissociables. Et les efforts de consolidation du cadre juridique et financier afin de soutenir le secteur privé dans ce domaine doivent être poursuivis et intensifiés. Mesdames et messieurs, le Gabon est résolument engagé dans la transition vers une économie plus inclusive, plus équitable et plus durable, donc davantage respectueuse de l'environnement. Aussi, voudrons-nous inviter l'ensemble des États à adopter une feuille de route reposant sur des politiques qui concilient capacité à atteindre l'autosuffisance alimentaire et préservation de notre planète. Ce n'est qu'à notre sens qu'ensemble et solidaires que nous réussirons à relever ce défi. Je vous remercie.
For laying out how interconnected building a resilient and nature-positive food system is connected with engaging all of your society. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is His Excellency Jim Kha Lü, Deputy Prime Minister and Chairman of the Council for Agricultural and Rural Development of Cambodia. Excellency, you have the floor.
António Guterres,
His Excellency António Guterres, Secretary-General of the United Nations, Excellency, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Samdech Akek Mahasenapati Techo Hun Sen, Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Cambodia, it is my great pleasure to deliver a statement for the royal government of Cambodia and my appreciation to the United Nations for hosting this important summit. Cambodian National Roadmap for Food Systems for Sustainable Development 2030 is the product of extensive analysis of dialogues and aligned with existing policy frameworks and strategies to achieve the 2030 food system vision, which is focused on providing food security and nutrition for all, economic, social, and environmental sustainability. Cambodia has identified 4 main priority areas as below. 1. Healthy diet for all to break the intergenerational cycle of malnutrition. We commit that by 2030, healthy diet will be available, accessible, and affordable for all Cambodians. 2. Empowerment of youth, women, and vulnerable. We commit to create opportunity for decent employment, education, and enterprise, and promote gender equality and spaces for youth in policy dialogue. 3. In the context that the world is fighting against COVID-19 and climate change, the Food System Summit has reminded us to focus on resilient livelihood and resilient food system to protect the food system against future shocks and stresses. Cambodia will address vulnerability and poverty and strengthen the resilience of food system actors, networks, and infrastructures. 4. Government for more inclusive food systems. Cambodia will continue dialogue, coordination, and collaboration with all stakeholders, ensuring justice and responsiveness to meet all the consumer, the vulnerable, and indigenous people. Cambodia moves to chairmanship of ASEAN 2022. We look forward to working with all countries in the region to improve food system for sustainability of people, planet, and prosperity. As the nation moves to upper middle income countries stated by 2030, food system will serve as the critical foundation for sustainable development and the elimination of all forms of malnutrition, hunger, and poverty, ensuring that no one is left behind. I wish Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, good health and success. Thank you.
Excellency, thank you very much indeed. And food systems as the cornerstone of sustainable development is the very purpose of this summit, and it's heartening to see how this translates into national policy. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is His Excellency Branislav Nedimovic, the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Agriculture, Forestry and Water Management of Serbia. Excellency, you have the floor.
Korona je pokazala, odnosno čitava priča o COVID od marta, februara 2020, da hrana ponovo ide u fokus. Mnogo dugo je hrana bila izuzetno jeftina. I sad je došlo do jednog kopernikanskog obrta gde se sve promenilo na tržištu hrane. Toliko su skočile žitarice, to je prosto neverovatno, ali potpuno je prirodno. Stanovništvo raste, na planeti hrane uvek treba, moraju ljudi da jedu nešto i s druge strane imate uticaj ekologije, s treće strane digitalizacija i tu mi moramo tražiti svoje mesto u čitavoj priči. S aspekta Srbije ne postoji važnija tema na kojoj moramo da radimo, s druge strane i s aspekta bezbednosti naše države. Prehrambena bezbednost je jedna od ključnih bezbednosti. Tako da čitava priča koju Ujedinjene nacije forsiraju, a vezana su za hranu, nama daju mogućnost da sagledamo neka iskustva koje drugi imaju i da probamo da unapredimo svoj sistem.
I think we lost His Excellency, but I would like to thank already at this point His Excellency Branislav Nedimovic, and I hand over the floor to His Excellency Mahdi Mohamed Gulaid, the Deputy Prime Minister of the Federal Republic of Somalia.
Your Excellency, Secretary-General António Guterres, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed a great honor to participate in this UN Food Systems Summit, which showcases our commitment as the federal government of Somalia to add our voice and contribute to such global efforts to transform our food systems. Our acceptance for the call for action by the food systems champions in Somalia reflects our dedication in addition to our support for investment in agribusiness and food system by promoting infrastructure, irrigation technology, and mechanization of all stages of production to facilitate productivity throughout the year. We will further commit to promote durable solutions to prevent the negative impacts of migration and displacement on food systems. We endeavor to intensify efforts to combat climate change effects such as famine, floods, pests, and promote disaster risk reduction that are context-specific to Somalia. We shall scale up early warning systems. This will support early decision-making, risk mitigation, and reduce magnitude of displacement. We commit to scale up our present social protection program in Bahnano to minimize the impact of shocks in our country. We shall advocate for the adoption and scaling up of nutrition-sensitive, government-led social protection programs to ensure no one is left behind. We shall also stimulate markets, provide livelihood opportunities, and more local nutrition food options by increasing investments in diversified nutrition-sensitive value chains. We shall encourage and create an enabling environment to support women's access to productive resources such as land, technology, active engagement, and involvement in the leadership positions. We commit to engage the youth in designing and developing digital innovative solutions while creating youth-centric opportunities, meaningful engagement, participation, and access to resources so as to enhance and scale up the promising digital practices and innovations. Ladies and gentlemen, Excellencies, as I conclude, I reiterate that Somalia remains supportive of food systems and achieving SDGs 2030. We have witnessed the devastating effects of climate change, weak food systems, and I hope through continued collaboration, we shall have a lasting solution and better world. I thank you all.
Excellency, thank you very much for sharing with us a comprehensive plan to counter a very interdependent crisis from one of the countries most affected by climate change. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is Her Excellency Rebecca Nyandeng de Mabior, the Vice President of the Republic of South Sudan. Excellency, you have the floor. As we don't seem to have Her Excellency, this would actually conclude this element of the leader's statement. And I thank you for your attention to continue our statements. I'm pleased to hand over moderation to Ms. Taona Kuo, Senior Advisor at the Executive Office of the UN Secretary-General, who has worked closely and invaluably, I might add, with us in producing this summit. And it's a great pleasure to hand over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Martin. It's a pleasure to take over the moderation for our remaining speakers for tonight. First, I'd like to invite His Excellency Vladimir Makai, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Belarus. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Ваше превосходительство, уважаемые участники саммита. Обеспечение продовольственной безопасности, ликвидация голода, содействие устойчивому развитию сельского хозяйства и повышению его производственного потенциала являются чрезвычайно важными и приоритетными задачами выполнения повестки дня в области устойчивого развития на период до 2030 года. Пандемия COVID-19 и вызванное ею замедление темпов роста мировой экономики привело к увеличению масштабов голода, в том числе в странах со средним уровнем дохода. Наличие взрывоопасного конфликтного потенциала в различных точках мира, угрожающие климатические изменения усугубляют продовольственный кризис и усиливают уязвимость национальных продовольственных систем, обеспечение устойчивости которых является одним из основных элементов на пути к достижению целей устойчивого развития. В Беларуси национальная продовольственная безопасность обеспечивается в полной мере. Согласно рейтингу глобальной продовольственной безопасности, Беларусь занимает 23 место в мире. Беларусь всегда вносила существенный вклад в обеспечение глобальной продовольственной безопасности. Наша страна экспортирует сельскохозяйственную продукцию и продукты питания в более чем 100 стран мира. Однако бездумное санкционное давление западных стран на Беларусь ставит под угрозу глобальную продовольственную безопасность. В условиях коронавирусной пандемии результаты санкционной политики приобретают далеко не радужные перспективы в области развития и борьбы с голодом в мире. Отсутствие на мировом рынке белорусских калийных удобрений, которые занимают 20% рынка, априори ведет к значительному снижению урожайности в сельском хозяйстве. Дефицит калийных удобрений на мировом рынке прогнозируемо приведет к росту их цен и, как следствие, к росту цен на продукты. Недопущение белорусских калийных удобрений на европейский рынок также негативно повлияет на сельскохозяйственный сектор экономики самого Евросоюза. В духе декларации Всемирного саммита по продовольственной безопасности Беларусь призывает отказаться от применения санкций, которые не только противоречат международным обязательствам, в том числе в рамках выполнения повестки дня 2030, но и идут вразрез с положениями Устава ООН и резолюции Генеральной Ассамблеи ООН по односторонним принудительным мерам. На фоне того факта, что почти 2 миллиарда человек в мире недоедают, недопустимо использование продовольствия и связывающих цепочек в качестве инструмента политического давления и экономического шантажа. В завершение хотел бы подтвердить, что, несмотря на имеющиеся вызовы и риски, Беларусь намерена поддерживать национальные достижения по цели устойчивого развития и ликвидации голода и выполнить повестку дня в области устойчивого развития в срок. Спасибо за внимание.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and thank you for stressing the importance of resilient food systems, particularly in the context of climate change and conflict. Next, I have the honor to invite His Excellency Nasir Bourita, Minister of Foreign Affairs, African Cooperation and Moroccan expatriates of the Kingdom of Morocco. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Monsieur le secrétaire général des Nations Unies, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, en premier lieu, je voudrais saluer l'initiative et le leadership du secrétaire général des Nations Unies pour la convocation de ce sommet sur les systèmes alimentaires, notre rang de la sécurité alimentaire. Pour le Royaume du Maroc, la sécurité alimentaire a toujours représenté une priorité stratégique. Elle est même au cœur du nouveau modèle de développement marocain. Grâce à la politique volontariste de Sa Majesté le roi Mohamed VI, le Maroc a mis en place une approche intégrée qui vise à garantir la disponibilité alimentaire, promouvoir le développement agricole et rural durable, privilégier la protection des ressources naturelles et s'adapter au changement climatique. En ce sens et en ligne avec l'agenda 2030, le Maroc a lancé une nouvelle stratégie agricole, Génération Green 2020-2030. Il s'agit d'une stratégie ambitieuse, dotée d'objectifs et de cibles réalisables et tournée vers l'avenir. Cette stratégie converge tout à fait avec les nombreuses autres politiques et initiatives royales comme l'INDH, Forêt du Maroc 2030, la stratégie des pêches, le programme de l'autonomisation économique des femmes et le projet de la généralisation de la protection sociale qui permettra d'accélérer la reprise économique et la réalisation des ODD à l'horizon 2030. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, en plus d'être un chantier national structurant, la sécurité alimentaire est un engagement fondamental du Maroc au niveau international et régional. Dans le cadre des préparatifs du sommet, et outre le dialogue national multipartite, le Maroc a organisé conjointement avec l'ONU le dialogue régional africain, au cours duquel plus de 40 ministres et décideurs africains ont identifié les priorités et les pistes d'action d'une transformation réussie des systèmes alimentaires en Afrique. De même, l'engagement du Maroc pour des systèmes alimentaires durables et inclusifs s'est traduit à travers l'adhésion à 3 coalitions internationales. La coalition des programmes alimentaires scolaires, la coalition en faveur de l'alimentation et la coalition sur l'agroécologie. La durabilité des systèmes alimentaires est aussi un domaine privilégié de la politique marocaine de coopération sud-sud et triangulaire. Il occupe une place centrale dans la coopération bilatérale avec des pays frères du continent africain et se trouve au cœur des initiatives pionnières lancées par Sa Majesté le roi Mohamed VI à l'occasion de la COP22. Je pense tout particulièrement à l'initiative AAA pour l'adaptation de l'agriculture africaine, à l'initiative S pour la soutenabilité, la stabilité et la sécurité en Afrique. Excellences, mesdames et messieurs, vecteur de développement et gage de paix et de stabilité, la sécurité alimentaire devient toutefois une urgence à laquelle doivent être apportées des solutions innovantes selon une approche coordonnée, intégrée et multidimensionnelle à l'échelle mondiale, régionale et nationale. L'Afrique, région la plus touchée par l'insécurité alimentaire, mérite une attention particulière. Nous ne pouvons rester indifférents à l'évolution inquiétante de l'insécurité alimentaire dans plusieurs parties de notre continent. C'est pour cela que le Maroc lance un appel à la communauté internationale pour créer un fonds dédié à la sécurité alimentaire en Afrique, permettrait de mobiliser des financements nécessaires à investir dans la transformation des systèmes alimentaires dans le continent en vue d'atteindre les objectifs de développement durable et de reconstruire au mieux. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and particularly the call of security, food security being urgent, particularly in your region, and the plan for a successful transformation of Morocco's food systems to meet the 2030 agenda. Next, I have the honor to invite His Excellency Bartolo, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Malta. Excellency, you have the floor.
Secretary-General, Special Envoy to UN Food System Summit, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It is truly an honor to participate in the Food System Summit, which has already contributed significantly towards our global efforts to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. As we gather today, it is encouraging to witness the engagement of a global effort at all levels, confirmed by the Food Systems Dialogues, to deliver on our Sustainable Development Goals. Towards this end, Malta is currently devising a national policy on food systems which fully embraces the interconnectedness between food, health, and the environment. Moreover, through the ongoing fruit and vegetable market reform, Malta has launched a food agency which is expected to adopt measures and mechanisms which safeguard our food systems while promoting the consumption of local produce. Furthermore, Malta fully embraced the call of the Secretary-General, and on 9 July 2021, we organized a Food Systems National Dialogue which prioritized the involvement of a wide range of sectors and stakeholders. The National Dialogue focused on Action Track 1 on ensuring access to safe and nutritious food for all, and Action Track 2 on shifting to sustainable consumption patterns. The dialogue addressed the needs of consumers in terms of accessibility, availability, and affordability of healthy food for children, and the actions that the government, relevant stakeholders, and citizens as advocates and consumers can take to make healthy food for children more accessible, available, and affordable. Based on the outcomes of the National Dialogue, we are once again engaging with all relevant stakeholders, including the private sectors, farmers, and non-governmental organizations, to develop a UN Food System Summit pathway. Young farmers are a key component of our food system. Farmers need to be supported and, more importantly, empowered to be part of a strategy to establish a healthier and more sustainable relationship with food systems. In this regard, the government is committed to support farmers by ensuring that they have access to land, equipment, technical knowledge, the market, and finance to help them mitigate the impact of climate change. As a country, one of the problems we need to address is the high incidence of obesity, especially among children. Current efforts are targeted at establishing a healthy relationship with food systems from an early age. In this regard, through our schools, we are doing our best to empower and educate children to foster healthy eating practices and active lifestyles. In conclusion, allow me to reiterate the importance of the United Nations Food System Summit in finding common solutions by building consensus among different stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and in particular, the national dialogues that you held, which had strong multi-stakeholder engagement now to develop your national pathways, particularly to ensure interconnectedness between food, health, and the environment. Next, I have the honor to introduce His Excellency Laurent Anselmi, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Cooperation of the Principality of Monaco. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Monsieur le Président de l'Assemblée générale, Mesdames et Messieurs les chefs d'État et de gouvernement, Excellences, c'est avec regret que nous ne pouvons être réunis à New York aujourd'hui, mais je suis heureux de pouvoir vous adresser ce message à l'occasion du sommet sur les systèmes alimentaires. Monsieur le Secrétaire général, je vous remercie pour l'organisation de ce sommet inédit, convoqué en 2019 à la veille d'une crise sanitaire sans précédent. Permettez-moi de féliciter le travail réalisé par l'envoyée spéciale, Madame Agnès Kalibata, et ses équipes. Si des centaines de millions de personnes souffraient déjà de la faim avant la pandémie persistante que nous connaissons, celle-ci, s'ajoutant aux effets du changement climatique, pourrait plonger 130 millions de personnes supplémentaires dans la faim chronique. Il nous appartient donc de considérer toutes les données résultant de ces crises concomitantes et d'en faire les déterminantes de nos politiques publiques. Ceci constitue un impératif moral. Pour s'en convaincre, il suffit d'écouter l'avertissement que le GIEC vient une nouvelle fois de lancer. Monsieur le Président, Mesdames et Messieurs, une action décisive est indispensable dès maintenant. Les systèmes alimentaires contribuent à plus d'un tiers des émissions mondiales de gaz à effet de serre. Les déchets alimentaires sont à eux seuls responsables d'une grande partie de ces émissions. Ce sommet, associé à la COP26 sur le climat, nous offre une chance unique de transformer nos systèmes alimentaires. Engagée dans l'Alliance pour le multilatéralisme, la Principauté de Monaco soutient les actions et initiatives forgées dans le sein des Nations Unies. Nous considérons en effet que seule une réponse concertée des États est à la hauteur des enjeux contemporains, parmi lesquels figure la sécurité alimentaire. Ainsi, Monaco a répondu à l'appel d'urgence du secrétaire général des Nations Unies pour lutter contre la famine au Burkina Faso et à Madagascar. Mon pays a du reste fait de la sécurité alimentaire et nutritionnelle l'une de ses 4 priorités de coopération. Nous sommes ainsi fermement engagés en faveur de la réalisation de l'objectif de développement durable numéro 2 de la décennie sur la nutrition et de la décennie sur l'agriculture familiale. Monsieur le secrétaire général, les organisations internationales ayant leur siège à Rome sont devenues des partenaires privilégiés de la Principauté. Et à ce titre, je tiens à rendre hommage au premier d'entre eux, le Programme alimentaire mondial, nommé Prix Nobel de la paix en 2020. À travers lui, nous finançons des programmes de cantines scolaires au service de la scolarisation des enfants, puissant levier de développement humain. Au cours du pré-sommet organisé à Rome, la Principauté a annoncé son soutien à la Coalition pour les repas scolaires, nutrition, santé et éducation pour tous les enfants. Monaco n'a pas manqué l'occasion d'unir sa voix à celle des 190 autres pays présents à cette occasion. Nous nous félicitons que le sommet souhaite sensibiliser le public mondial sur la façon dont nous produisons, consommons et voyons les aliments. Mais nous nous réjouissons d'autant plus qu'il se veut porteur de solutions concrètes. Aujourd'hui, plus que jamais, il incombe à la communauté internationale de réaffirmer ses engagements dans la lutte contre la faim et la malnutrition.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and in particular Monaco's strong priority on food and nutrition security and the call for decisive action now. Next, I have the honor to invite His Excellency Muhyiddin, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Tajikistan. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Distinguished Secretary-General, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to deliver a statement on behalf of the Government of the Republic of Tajikistan at the UN Food System Summit 2021 First of all, I would like to emphasize the importance of holding today's event dedicated to food security and nutrition. The development of the agriculture, including the introduction of new technologies and innovations with a view to reducing the negative impact on the environment and creating of the green economy among the main priorities of the National Development Strategy of the Republic of Tajikistan to 2030. It is worth mentioning that the government of the Republic of Tajikistan determined the food security among its 4 strategic goals. Since gaining the independence, Tajikistan has been cooperating with the relevant UN structures and international organizations in promoting this goal, as well as in the achieving SDG 2 and addressing the issues of climate change and nutrition. The implementation of these goals has a multilateral character and requires international and regional cooperation. In this regard, we are looking forward to cooperating with the UN agencies in attracting the necessary resources of donor countries. Tajikistan advocates uniting efforts at the international and regional levels to prevent, tackle, and eliminate the consequences of food shortage and ensure food security in the country. Ladies and gentlemen, it should be noted that after the rise of Taliban to power in Afghanistan, this country is on the brink of a humanitarian disaster. The people are at risk of severe hunger. Obviously, the Taliban lack the capacity to develop and implement a comprehensive food security policy in this country. Therefore, we call on the world community to provide an urgent assistance in ensuring food security to the people of Afghanistan before the winter begins. With the spread of COVID-19 pandemic, the situation on the planet has become complicated. In order to overcome the existing challenges, we call on international organizations to render their support in addressing the food crisis through the integrated development of agriculture. In conclusion, I would like to extend my appreciation to the development partners, including FAO, IFAD, and WFP, for involving in the implementation of projects on food security and nutrition in Tajikistan. I wish you fruitful deliberation during the summit. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and in particular, the emphasis for the need for stronger international cooperation to address food security around the world. Next, I have the honor to invite His Excellency Sergei Lavrov, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Российская Федерация последовательно выступает за решение проблемы голода и ликвидацию всех форм неполноценного питания. Считаем недопустимым, что на фоне взрывного развития науки и технологий миллионы людей в мире продолжают страдать и умирать от голода и болезней. К сожалению, и без того тяжелую ситуацию в этой области еще больше усугубляют рост числа и масштабов стихийных бедствий и конфликтов, распространение ограничительных мер в торговле, а также пандемия коронавируса COVID-19, поразившая все страны без исключения. Нынешний саммит дает уникальную возможность оценить сильные и слабые стороны существующих продовольственных систем и определить основные направления их преобразования для построения мира без голода. Результатом изменений должно стать не только производство достаточного количества качественного продовольствия без нанесения дальнейшего ущерба окружающей среде и биологическому разнообразию, но и обеспечение его сохранности, доступности для всех категорий населения. Именно такой комплексный подход положен в основу доктрины продовольственной безопасности Российской Федерации, утвержденной президентом Путиным в январе 2020 года. Как один из крупнейших производителей продовольствия и значимый участник мирового рынка сельхозпродукции, Россия вносит заметный вклад в повышение глобальной продовольственной безопасности. Наша страна поддерживает усилия мирового сообщества в области гуманитарного реагирования и содействия международному развитию. Последовательно участвует в оказании продовольственной помощи как по двусторонним каналам, так и по линии организации системы ООН. Одной из самых результативных форм помощи считаем реализацию проектов по школьному питанию. Находясь на стыке гуманитарной помощи и содействия развитию, они обеспечивают большой кумулятивный эффект. Совместно со Всемирной продовольственной программой осуществляем серию таких проектов на сумму более 120 миллионов долларов. Проведение национального диалога в рамках подготовки к нынешнему саммиту объединило представителей органов власти, науки, бизнеса и неправительственных организаций и позволило систематизировать отечественные отраслевые достижения последних лет, актуализировать профильные задачи, в том числе в области международного сотрудничества. Все эти элементы нашли свое отражение в национальном докладе, который озаглавлен «Навстречу саммиту ООН по продовольственным системам» и размещен на сайте саммита. Считаем, что на страновом уровне было бы полезно сохранить механизм национальных диалогов для продолжения работы и после саммита. Именно так мы рассчитываем поступить в России. Хотел бы отметить, что даже самые амбициозные рекомендации саммита рискуют остаться только на бумаге, если не будут приняты решения по координации последующей деятельности. Исходим из того, что главенствующая роль в этом процессе должна принадлежать правительствам при поддержке римских международных организаций ФАО, Всемирной продовольственной программы и Международного фонда сельскохозяйственного развития, а также во взаимодействии с другими организациями системы ООН. Именно межправительственные организации имеют соответствующий мандат, необходимую экспертизу и инструментарий для выработки пользующихся международным консенсусом решений, а также потенциалом для оказания необходимого содействия нуждающимся странам. Благодарю за внимание.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and we welcome Russia is keeping the national dialogue mechanism after the summit and its inclusive engagement in its national dialogues up to now. Next, I have the honor to invite His Excellency Tom de Bruyn, Minister of Foreign Trade and Development Cooperation of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Your Excellencies, 1 in 10 people suffer from hunger, and this figure is rising. We have reached the limits of what our planet can take. Our food system is in crisis, and this has fundamental implications, not just for zero hunger, but for all SDGs. I would like to thank the organizers of this summit for bringing us together. We know the causes of the crisis: poverty, exclusion, conflict, COVID-19, climate change, water scarcity, and biodiversity loss. Now we must move towards solutions. The Dutch experience may be helpful to find these. Although we are not a large nation, our food and agricultural sector is a powerhouse with strong international links. This is the result of constantly innovating, changing, and adapting. And we are currently transitioning towards a more healthy, sustainable, and resilient system. To speed up similar innovation around the world, we urgently need better policies and broader cooperation. To achieve that, policy and decision-making need to be based on the best knowledge and latest insights. Science is essential to any effective action. Next, we need UN agencies, donors, civil society, knowledge institutions, and the private sector to respond effectively to countries' needs and local demands. The Netherlands acknowledges the central role of the Rome-based agencies, but other actors need to get involved too. We are an active member of the Zero Hunger Coalition, and we are ready to support other initiatives aimed at innovation, climate action, and impact at scale. Finally, the international community needs to ensure that no one is left behind. Women, youth, and indigenous peoples, Not only do they all have the right to food, they're also a key part of our food systems. This summit rightly puts people first, and we talk together today, we must also act together tomorrow. That is the only way to create a stronger food system and a better future for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and in particular, stressing that we need to move towards solutions for healthy, sustainable, resilient food systems for all. Next, I'd like to invite His Excellency Jean-Yves Le Drian, Minister of Europe and Foreign Affairs of the Republic of France. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Monsieur le Secrétaire général des Nations Unies, Madame la Vice-Secrétaire générale, Mesdames et Messieurs, un tiers de l'humanité n'a pas accès à des aliments sains et nutritifs en quantité suffisante. C'est un constat terrible qui doit tous nous alerter dans un contexte marqué par la crise sanitaire, les conflits et les désordres environnementaux. Nous alerter et nous conduire à agir pour transformer durablement nos systèmes alimentaires et mettre en cohérence nos politiques climatiques, commerciales, alimentaires et agricoles. Car il n'y a pas à choisir entre nourrir le monde avec des produits de qualité et diversifiés et préserver notre planète. Ces deux combats essentiels sont intimement liés et nous devons les mener de front. C'est pourquoi la France a pris ses responsabilités. Nous avons choisi d'accroître nos capacités de production de protéines végétales, tout en renforçant notre souveraineté alimentaire pour remédier aux fragilités structurelles mises au jour par la crise pandémique. Il s'agit de réduire notre bilan carbone, d'éviter l'importation de produits issus de la déforestation et d'offrir une alimentation plus saine à nos concitoyens. Dans le même temps, nous accélérerons la transition agroécologique en veillant à accompagner nos agriculteurs qui doivent pouvoir vivre dignement de leur travail. Cet engagement pour l'agroécologie, nous entendons aussi le porter sur la scène internationale, car il s'agit d'un formidable levier pour améliorer la sécurité alimentaire des populations, favoriser le développement des sociétés, soutenir les plus vulnérables et répondre au dérèglement de notre planète, l'urgence climatique et l'érosion de la biodiversité. C'est pourquoi nous soutenons la coalition sur l'agroécologie. C'est avec ce même objectif, à l'occasion du One Planet Summit de janvier dernier, que la France a lancé l'accélérateur de la Grande Muraille Verte, cette mosaïque de solutions agroécologiques innovantes qui permettront de reconstituer les écosystèmes et de mettre en place des chaînes de valeur performantes et durables dans 11 pays du Sahel. 18 milliards de dollars ont déjà été mobilisés. D'ici 2030, ils serviront à restaurer 250 millions d'hectares de terres pour l'agriculture, à créer 10 millions d'emplois et à séquestrer 250 millions de tonnes de carbone. À travers l'Agence française de développement, nous contribuerons au déploiement de ce projet à hauteur de près de 600 millions d'euros sur 5 ans. La France appuie également la coalition pour l'alimentation scolaire. Et sous l'égide du PAM, cette initiative vise à garantir aux écoliers et aux écolières du monde entier au moins un repas sain, sûr et diversifié par jour. Dans le cadre de cette coalition, la France partagera son expérience et ses bonnes pratiques et soutiendra la mobilisation politique dans ce domaine en mobilisant ses instituts de recherche. Elle finance d'ores et déjà le lancement de l'initiative du PAM et met ses experts à sa disposition. Pour tenir l'objectif fin zéro à l'horizon 2030, États, organisations internationales, chercheurs, collectivités locales, acteurs de la société civile et entreprises privées doivent continuer à travailler ensemble à la transformation durable de nos systèmes alimentaires. Vous pouvez compter sur l'engagement de la France à vos côtés. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and we thank France's championing of innovative ecological solutions for food systems. Next, I have the honor to invite His Excellency, Cosabon, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Mexico. Excellency, you have the floor.
México agradece la invitación a esta cumbre de los sistemas alimentarios que ha promovido la Organización de las Naciones Unidas. Desde luego, es crucial el esfuerzo que podamos hacer todos los países del mundo de manera combinada en un gran esfuerzo multilateral para erradicar el hambre en el planeta, cosa que no hemos logrado y sigue siendo hoy un objetivo estratégico y primordial. Pero también, y al mismo tiempo, con los resultados de la pandemia en términos de salud, hemos observado que tenemos que cambiar los patrones de consumo la prevalencia de la diabetes y la obesidad, el uso indiscriminado de azúcares, de alimentos procesados. Entonces, al mismo tiempo que tenemos que erradicar el hambre, que está vinculado íntimamente a la desigualdad y a la pobreza en el mundo, tenemos también que cuidar el consumo y modificar los patrones de consumo, la producción de gas metano y los efectos en la salud, como ya dije, obesidad, que tiene una prevalencia notable en muchos países del mundo. Entonces, México participa en estas dos preocupaciones y desea manifestar su compromiso pleno para avanzar en una y otra, con nuevas tecnologías, con políticas públicas, con medidas acordadas entre todos los países que nos permitan avanzar en esa dirección. Hoy por hoy ya es evidente que no tenemos tiempo que perder. Alguien dirá, bueno, nunca lo hemos tenido, pero ahora con la pandemia, la presencia de la pandemia y sus impactos sociales y en materia de salud, pues el tiempo se nos acabó. Tenemos que hacerlo ahora y México está en la mejor disposición de participar. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and in particular stressing the important links between food systems and health impacts. Next, I'd like to invite His Excellency Archbishop Paul Richard Gallagher, the Secretary of Relations with States of the Holy See. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Mr. President, the Holy See is pleased to participate in this first ever United Nations Food Systems Summit, and thanks the Secretary-General for launching this important and timely initiative. There is a pressing need to intensify international action towards transforming food systems and combating food insecurity and malnutrition. Pope Francis has stressed that in the 21st century, hunger is not only a tragedy for humanity, but also a real cause for shame. For this reason, it is time to move from declarations and the formulation of strategies to effective and urgent action. The critical question is how to transform food systems so that they advance the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, support regeneration of social systems after the COVID-19 pandemic, and promote the integral development of every person while protecting our planet's integrity. As Pope Francis said in his pre-summit message last July, we must strive to increase resilience, strengthen local economies, improve nutrition, reduce food waste, provide healthy diets accessible to all, reach environmental sustainability, and respect local cultures. Access to food is a fundamental human right and essential for a dignified life. Food for all is a moral duty. Feeding the hungry, however, is not enough. We also need to provide the poor and those in vulnerable situations with the necessary resources to support themselves and their families in the long term. One response is to provide them with greater opportunities for land use and ownership, financial resources and training. This is particularly important for agricultural workers, including family farmers. Mr. President, sustainable food systems should provide nutritious food for all, support equitable and just livelihoods, and promote circular models of production and consumption. We must replace the throwaway culture with a culture of care that protects the inherent dignity of every person and preserves our common home. While it is essential to make use of the best science and advanced technology available, such an approach must be guided by ethical principles aimed at promoting integral human development and pursuing the common good. To be successful, there is the need to implement a vision of food systems that integrates the human, economic, environmental, and technological components. The international community can count on the Holy See to help make that vision a reality through the many initiatives of the Catholic Church on the ground worldwide. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and for stressing that access to food is a fundamental human right. Next, I have the honor to invite the Right Honourable Lord Goldsmith, Minister for Pacific and the Environment of the United Kingdom. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you, Secretary-General Special Envoy Kalibata. It's great to see how the debate has progressed over recent months and how priorities for the summit and for the G7 and COP26 are coming together. Our food systems are heaping costs on future generations and on the planet. In the last 40 years, we've tripled food production, but 1 billion people are facing hunger and malnutrition today. And the way we produce and consume food is fundamentally unsustainable, increasing the risk of zoonosis and the threat of antimicrobial resistance and putting impossible pressure on freshwater, forests, biodiversity, climate and weather systems, and on the world's poorest who depend most directly on the free services that nature provides. That includes, of course, indigenous people. So working together to help prevent ecological collapse and famine is more important than ever. And that's why the UK has appointed our first special envoy and why we brought the G7 together to commit to providing $7 billion in humanitarian assistance and resilience strengthening support to 42 countries with populations just one step from famine. Our shared global goal is to feed 9 billion people by 2030, but in a way that helps us tackle climate change and biodiversity loss and helps realize the Sustainable Development Goals. In England, we've commissioned an independent review of how we can make our food system fit for the future. And having reduced the volume of wasted food in our country by more than 1/5 between 2007 and 2018, we're committed to achieving the UN goal to halve all food waste by 2030. And we're making land use subsidies contingent on good environmental stewardship, as well as bringing in legislation to get illegal deforestation out of UK supply chains. But we need global change. So we're calling on governments everywhere to eliminate and redirect harmful incentives, as well as significantly increasing incentives with positive impacts across all sectors. The G7 have committed to leading by example and must now make good on that commitment. And ahead of COP26, we're building global alliances of countries committed to more sustainable agriculture, and in particular to breaking the link between agriculture and global deforestation, while increasing sustainable trade. We need every single nation to join us. At COP26, we'll be sharing the ways that countries, businesses and farmers are already putting the transition to sustainable agriculture into action, including through nature-based solutions and new technologies. We will showcase the most ambitious commitments to help protect and restore the world's most important forests, and we'll shine a light on the health of our ocean as well. Ahead of the Tokyo Nutrition for Growth Summit and all 3 Rio conventions, we need to recognize that we have all the tools we need. All that's missing is the political will to use them. So it's up to us to make this decade the decade we reconcile our lives and our economies with the natural world on which we all depend. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and for the leadership of the United Kingdom through the G7 to address food security, and also the leadership going into the COP26 later this year. Next, I have the honor to invite His Excellency, Dr. Gerd Müller, Federal Minister for Economic Cooperation and Development of the Federal Republic of Germany. Excellency, you have the floor.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, 2 months have passed since the pre-summit in Rome. What has happened since? In Afghanistan, for example, another humanitarian disaster is looming. In the coming 12 months, half of all children will suffer from malnutrition. 18 million people need humanitarian aid. 15,000 children still die from starvation every day worldwide. We have been making good progress. Since 1990, the number of hungry people have gone down by 200 million. Now it is rising. COVID has disrupted supply chains, made people jobless and driven up prices. These consequences of COVID are killing more people than the virus itself. And wherever people are starving, you have conflicts. And where there are conflicts, you have hunger. So fighting hunger is not just emergency assistance, it is a policy for peace. It was a wise decision that the World Food Programme was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Last year alone, Germany supported WFP with more than 1 billion euro. However, aid agencies are underfunded. What we need is a permanent UN emergency and crisis fund of $10 billion. But we have to move away from response toward prevention. We need to prevent crises, not manage them. We need to act now. I have a clear message. A world without hunger is possible. We know how to get there, and we know what it will cost. We can do it. We have to have the will to do it. Research tells us we need $40 billion in investments every year up to 2030 from industrialized countries, developing countries, and the private sector. But means are not enough. We need implementation for real investments in agriculture that requires 5 points. Technology transfer, energy for the agricultural sector, loans for farmers and secure land rights, supply chains that moves from free to fair with more value addition on the ground, and production. We must help to build industries, create local brands. We have to develop the right tools for this with clear leadership also within the UN. Action is needed more than ever now.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and for laying out so clearly the solutions to ensure that we can have a world without hunger. Next, I have the honor to invite His Excellency Kandi Elisa, Secretary of the Department of Foreign Affairs of the Federated States of Micronesia. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, the Federated States of Micronesia commends Secretary-General Guterres for recognizing the central role of food in the human condition and for calling this Food System Summit to bring renewed commitment to the Sustainable Development Goals. We join other world leaders in renewing my government's commitments to implement our national Sustainable Development Goals. Mr. Chairman, the process of preparing for the Food System Summit has given Micronesia and its communities a momentous opportunity to transform our food systems to more effectively address key social, economic, and environmental challenges in ways that can truly create a better future for our people. In our national approach, we cast our dialogues around a novel, community-level, behavioral lens focused on discrete food-related issues that have profound existential relevance for our communities. These issues include improved nutrition and the fight against non-communicable diseases, where we still struggle. Micronesia has the second highest rate of obesity in the Pacific and one of the highest rate of NCDs in the world. We do not have generalized hunger in our communities, but rather we have an overconsumption of unhealthy food. Modern lifestyle career choices and outward migration have reshaped our local production capability and impacted on our traditional culture and society. In our dialogues, our stakeholders have reaffirmed the importance of expanding healthy local food production and accessibility. In so doing, we would also address the need to raise producer incomes and ensure equitable standards of rural livelihood while promoting nature-sensitive production techniques. For long-term sustainability and resilience, our communities seek to explore improved resilience through community-based resource management and improved governance and decision-making. We have been overwhelmed by the positive response and explicit acceptance of responsibility by our communities to address these challenges and to be the change they seek. It is truly an exciting threshold that we are on. In contrast to other countries, our proposed game-changing pathways submitted to the Food System Summit for support from the broad international coalitions may seem rather basic and unglamorous. However, our realization is that sustained transformation must be built on a solid foundation of good information, good governance, and accountability, as well as appropriate innovation and robust community participation, all underpinned by a firm commitment to sustain the transformational effort over the long term. These 5 cross-cutting systemic elements form the conceptual proposals for which the Federated States of Micronesia is seeking support from the summit's coalitions, as well as from bilateral and other programs of assistance in the years ahead. We do not discount the difficulty of social change. It will take years to rebalance our community health, equity, and well-being. We're not looking for quick, externally conceived project fixes. Rather, we are looking for serious multi-year programs of support for Micronesia's community-led transformation. To that end, in my capacity as the Federated States of Micronesia's Secretary of Foreign Affairs, I can assure our friends and allies and development partners that we will incorporate consideration of all food systems efforts and assistance in a common community review and coordination framework to better ensure that the desired outcomes are truly community-led, owned, and sustained. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and we warmly welcome the game-changing pathway that Micronesia has developed to ensure a long-term transformation that is community-led and owned. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our statements and program for this evening. We look forward to resuming at 9 a.m. New York time tomorrow, Friday, the 24th of September, with a number of other member state statements and concluding remarks from the UN Deputy Secretary General. Thank you for joining us today and good evening.